And we are being recorded and live streamed on YouTube, and we want to thank the Cultural Events Committee for sponsoring this week's events. So why are we holding ISU Open Education Week? Well, the library really got interested in talking about OER earlier this year when we became aware of some recent research around OER. We learned that 42% of Florida college students said they took fewer courses because they could not afford textbooks in a 2018 survey of all Florida higher education institutions. We also learned that a meta-analysis came out in 2019 showing that courses that adopted OER saw an average 29% decrease in withdrawal rates. And I think these two numbers together really tell a story about how a financial situation can really impact a student's retention. Before I turn it over to today's speakers, I have just a couple, well, three quick announcements. First, if you weren't aware, ISU is now an ebook publisher. We have an ebook publishing platform. So if you're interested in generating content or writing a free ebook, whether you want it to be openly licensed or copyrighted with all rights reserved copyright, we can do that. So please get in touch with me. I'm Kristen Whitman. You can talk to anyone at the library and they'll just refer you to me if you're interested in doing that. We also, thanks to our collaborators in the ITRC, shout out to Daphne Tseng, we have an OER course in Moodle now, and you can self-enroll in that course for training materials on OER, updates about OER events on campus, and more. And I've pasted a link into the chat if you'd like to self-enroll yourself in that Moodle course. Finally, next week is Idaho Open Education Week, a very similarly named event that is different. It's the statewide conference. If I've put a link to their homepage in the chat, or you can Google Idaho Open Education Week. They have a great slate of programs, and it's a free conference. So definitely recommend that. So I'm going to turn it over to today's speakers. We're really excited to be able to have you guys, Daphne Tseng and Lance Rowe. They are instructional technologists from the ITRC. I'm really excited to hear what they have to show us today. So without further ado, stop sharing and turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you for that introduction. I'll get my presentation up on the screen. And so, yeah, so in this presentation, we're going to talk about your open educational resources and making them engaging. Along with those things is using a tool called H5P to create an active learning environment. So as if this is your first time hearing H5P, not sure what that is, H5P stands for HTML5 package. So similar to if you've heard of SCORM or the Flash interactive content, H5P is similar to those type of things. It's HTML, so it allows you to create, as you can see, sequencing. We've got image pairing on the screen. There's also multiple choice. It just allows you to create these interactive elements that then can be embedded really anywhere. So in your open educational resources, in your courses, and we'll get a little bit more into those things, but that's in general what H5P is a self-authoring interactive content platform. And there are a wide variety of content authoring types that you can use. So let me go ahead and just jump into the benefits of this. So H5P is a great platform. Those tools are reusable, shareable, and free to use. Anyone can use H5P, and no coding is required for the initial step. It's all, anyone can do it. And it's also fun creating content. As I mentioned before, there's a wide variety of different content types that you can create in your course. For example, there's an interactive video, so you can have a video that then at certain points assesses your students, asks them questions regarding to the video, and you can do jump cuts where if they get it wrong, it has them rewatch a section. It also has a branching scenario, so you can give students a scenario, they answer questions, and based on their answers, they get specific feedback to those things. You also get to take ownership because, again, you're creating this content and it's easy to add it to your portfolio, reuse it in different courses that you might teach. And again, because you're the one authoring it, you're building content for you. So you're free to take that content that you've designed and modify it and tweak it for your learning activities. Now, in the traditional sense, talking about what most people, when they use H5P, it's a lot of the teacher is the one who's creating this content and then publishing it out to their students to review. Let me go ahead and show what that might look like in a course on Moodle. So we have here, this is a Moodle book, and we've got our content that I've put together, and then we've got this interactive piece where students can then engage with the content itself. And so again, I can put together kind of a lesson plan or again, instructional material, and then include these components for students to then interact with. Since we're using Moodle version 3.9, H5P is actually integrated into your course. Let me go ahead and show what that looks like. If I come to our navigation drawer, we have this content bank here. And this is a new place that allows you to store your H5P. You can, if you created it somewhere else, you can bring that into your course. You can also create your H5P from scratch. But then you can create your content here at the course level. And then going back to the Moodle book, if I come into this chapter, and I'm going to edit the content. Clear this all out for you. We now have this insert H5P button. So when I click on it, I can browse repositories. There's my content bank, and then I can choose from those different items and select and upload. And then when I do save changes, it will then be published for me to interact with and my students being able to interact with. Now that's the traditional sense. One of the things that I wanted to focus on is, I guess before that, do we have any questions before I move on?
Yes, Lance, Laura has asked, will you just show where the button is again? I just happened to look away at the exact time, the H5P button.
Perfect. So if I go back to edit, I'll wait for this to load, and I'll make my screen just a little bit bigger. The H5P is going to be here at your top tier list of buttons. All right, so any other questions before I move on to the next slide? Okay, so what we'll do now is, so moving, what I really like to use H5P for is this next step of allowing my students to publish this content. So rather than creating all this myself, I'm kind of giving that permission for students. And this does two things. One, before you can really make H5P, you have to understand what you're making it for. So students are going to be needing to look into, the content, and from there decide how are they going to create something interactive that supports the content itself. And then the other thing that it does is, because students are then sharing this and evaluating each other's work, you then get this network of content that's being created and evaluated by one another. And let me go ahead and show what that might look like in a Moodle course. So I have a discussion forum here, and this course has been created so that students have access to the content bank and the H5P insert button. By default, they normally don't have these permissions. But students, they can come into here, they can create a discussion post just as normal, and then they would have access to that H5P insert button, and they can create their H5P in the discussion forum. And again, students can then analyze, talk about the content, and really do this networking and gathering of information.
Lance, quick question that arose in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Is this in all Moodle courses, or do I have to request it?
So the content bank is in all Moodle courses. For the ability for students to create H5P, that's going to be a request that you that you can send to me, and I can help you with those student-specific ones. But in general, creating H5P, that is open by default. Any instructor can create H5P in their course, and everyone should have a content bank in their navigation drawer. And so with that, with H5P, and this is what I want to kind of focus on now, is there's a lot of different strategies, because we've really focused a lot on Moodle and using those things. But you might be thinking, you know, where to get started in all of this. And so here's a couple different platforms. So h5p.org, this is the free website. You can create a free account, and it allows you to play with, learn with, try different content types that are available to you within h5p.org. There is an application that you can download that's for free called Lumi Education. And this one, it's a little bit different, but it allows you to create H5P right from your desktop. So it's got the editor, and then it will help you create a file that you can then upload to other sites that do allow you to host or publish your H5P. In this middle tier here, we've got ones that are more of a paid service. So as I mentioned, H5P is free, but really the expensive piece is the storage of those tools. So h5p.com is where you can have a paid account, and you can create your H5P and store them on that site. Both WordPress and Pressbook both have a paid tier that allow you to use the H5P plugin. So on those platforms, if you're creating a textbook and have that paid tier, you can create your H5P. Now, as I just showed you, your LMS, or specifically in Moodle, we've got those H5P capabilities already implemented and integrated. And all of this is great, but one of the things that I wanted to do extra from this was I've got a sister who teaches high school, and they don't really have any of these options. So I was trying to think about, is there a truly free way to do this for those who may not have access to these other options that are available? And GitHub actually allows you to self-host your own website, and then you can store your H5P. I won't get too much into that, how that's done in this presentation, but know that you truly can use H5P freely. Any questions before I move on to the next segment in this? Okay. So student feedback. So one of the things, so as part of my coursework, last summer, I developed a course, and it was an authoring course. So we wanted students to create, and most of that course was designed around using H5P. So students were instructed on creating interactive graphics, a virtual 360 tour, a couple different things like that. And while the structure of the course was relatively the same, because the content that they were working on was vastly different, from adding images with interactive hotspots to more of the interactive branching or virtual tour, it provided a wide variety of things that students could do. And so just to look at these, is students really like that ability to create content and share it. And I think that's ultimately my vision as well of using H5P, is giving students that ability to create and share. And so with that, kind of want to open the door. So if you have any specific questions of how you can use H5P in your course, you're more than welcome to email the ITRC or schedule an appointment. As it gets more specific, you can schedule an appointment with me directly. I'd be happy to answer any of those questions. But at this point, I want to talk about or open it up for those who have any general questions about H5P and creating interactive environments.
Lance, I actually have a question. This is Kristen. When you do have students create your H5P content, how long does it take to teach them how to use H5P? Do you feel like you're giving up any instructional time or bandwidth to that?
No, I keep it like for the course we did last summer, I just made it part of the instruction. And I mean, it was an asynchronous course, but I basically provided them the tutorials and it was fairly easy for them to pick up. Let me kind of go into that more by going to h5p.org. Because this is going to be mostly where you go to for tutorials and learning about the tools themselves. And so let me go ahead and hop down to these. And so you can get an example of what those tools are. And then there should be a link that takes me to a tutorial on how to set it up. And I'm not seeing it immediately. But that's kind of the beauty of H5P that I will say is, if I go back to the content bank and let me just pick one of these other ones, like the collage. So this allows you to put pictures together and kind of organize them. Because really with H5P, all you're really doing is, here's my title. This one tells me what kind of layout I want to use. And then I just upload my pictures and save. So it's really easy to pick up H5P in the various content types that there are.
I saw Dawn raise her hand. Dawn, would you like to talk?
Oh, I'm super excited about this. I hope I can. I am going to be working with a student who's doing an independent study. She's becoming a teacher. She's doing an independent study and wants to design some units. And I am just thinking this would be amazing, like 3 separate learning modules. And that's what I'm wondering. She's wanting to do it in the late 8 weeks, you know, starting next week. Do you think that's realistic for her to be able to do 3 separate learning modules as a first-time person using this, and me working with her as a first-time person?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so, because as I mentioned, H5P is really easy to pick up. And I mean, you also have the ITRC for any of the tough questions that might come up, but I mean, I think it's easily doable. That one course that we did in the summer, we did have the students in that create one online instructional unit, and the gates were open, and that was a 6-week course, if I remember right. So it can be done. I think definitely doable. I think the next question would be is looking at, what would be the best platform, especially if it's something that you want students or you want this resource to be available outside of ISU. You might want to use the Pressbooks, because as I mentioned before, I believe our tier that we have through the institution, we have that H5P capability. So Pressbooks would be a way to do that. If it's just more of keeping it within Moodle, that's definitely doable as well.
Okay, this is really exciting. Thank you.
Lance, Kathy was asking, could you show more example?
Yeah, so let me go ahead and go to, I'm going to jump down to, because I'm actually in an OER specific course right now. So most of my H5P has been related to that. But let me go to our course. Let me take 1 minute and see if I can find that course that we have a lot more examples in. Okay, so this screen is going to look a little bit different because these are all using the Moodle plugin that we had installed at one point, but the premise is still the same. So let me just go through some of these kind of one by one so you can see. So here's the accordion. So again, this one allows you to put content in the different drop downs with different information. Let me go down to drag and drop. So here's one that we talk about, measurable verbs. So this allows you to basically have an image and then you can put a hotspot. And so for example, in this one, so we can look at our verbs and decide which ones are measurable. And I'll just kind of do this at random. And then this one allows me to check, and it's going to let me know what I got correct, what I got incorrect, as a kind of a quick self-assessment. And really all of these are just depending on how creative you want to be and really utilize these tools for how you want to use it in your instructional content. Here's image juxtaposition. So this one is, as we kind of saw earlier, this allows me to take an image and compare it. So here's one that's talking about flooding. And here's a picture from 2011 from July to October. So you see that difference there. Here's an example of the interactive video piece. So this one, it's similar. You've got your playlist here, and then these little dots here are, so that one's a multiple choice quiz. I think this one. So then I can go and answer the question and check. And so that was interactive video. And then I'll see if I can do one more. This was one that I had fun with, was the virtual tour. So this one takes a little bit more skill because to do a 360 virtual tour, you kind of need the right tools to capture. So I did the best I could to make a 360 image. And so here's the ITRC. And so people can actually take a tour of the area. I've got audio clips. I can showcase some of the different tools that or facilities that we have in this area. Let me go to the back lab. I can kind of showcase what it looks like with the different resources. And again, I can play video, text, audio in this type of environment. And so those are just a couple of the examples that you can see with H5P and some of the different kinds of content you can create.
Lance, we have another question. Are there any copyright issues that could arise in putting this type of content together? For example, in including images or problems from textbooks?
Right. So you always have to be mindful of what you use to put together. So that's why, like for images, you probably still want to use like the Creative Commons search engine and look for images that are free to use. Things like that. I know when you create your H5P, let me see if I have an example here, that the H5P itself, you can also set different copyright information as well. Let me see if I can, because typically,
Yeah, I would add to Kathy that the same kind of copyright restrictions apply as if you were creating any other kind of material. I know that's not a very helpful answer, but if you're talking about taking like a question from a textbook and copying and pasting it, or online materials from a publisher that are traditionally copyrighted and copying and pasting it into H5P, I would think that is not something that their licensing would allow.
I would definitely agree with that as well. I can't find the option that I was looking for immediately, because it will give you the option to, maybe if I go back to that one course. Anyways, I know you in H5P, there's typically a place where you can easily embed the H5P, download the H5P file, so you could upload it somewhere else and modify it. And then there's a copyright button as well that you can review. But that's within the H5P platform itself.
We have a question from Laura asking, what are some examples for questions, quizzes, and activities? Les, do we have some example for the quiz?
I don't have any immediate examples for the quiz. I know, and I'll just say this one anecdotal for sake of time, but I know there's a course we developed that uses speak the word set. So it was a specific medical terminology. So when students, they would read the word, and then H5P would tell them if they got it correct. And that one was kind of a quiz-like, where you could have a series of terminology and students could pronounce those. So great for language classes, or getting kind of the jargon or technical information to help students kind of know how to pronounce those. That's one tool I can think of that does that. And again, because as far as Moodle goes, I will add this. If you're looking for more summative assessment, those heavier weighted type, I definitely still recommend the Moodle quiz tool. H5P is more for that formative self-check. So definitely don't put your final in H5P format. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that.
Hi, Lance. This is Laura. My mic has been unmuted because my question was actually a repetition of, I believe, Kathy's question. But to follow up on that, when you are creating something like a quiz, can you make it so that the answers also are like it self-checks like you can already in Moodle?
Yeah, I believe that's the default option for like the quiz question types. I'll have to double check because I haven't played with those ones, because I do have the Moodle quiz tool. But yeah, most of the H5P is kind of meant for that self-assess, self-check.
I'm sorry, I don't think I was clear. But as far as grading, so if you put it in your Moodle course, can you make it so that they receive a score for it? Like they get unlimited choices, or unlimited attempts, or like 3 attempts, and it takes the highest score. So when you say self-check, does that mean it's just for the student's benefit, or would it count? Can you make it so that it counts for part of their grade?
You can make it be a standalone item that populates in the grade book. And how you do that is, if I turn editing on and go to add an activity or resource, there is the H5P activity type. So that would actually put a placeholder in the grade book. I'll have to double check and see to what extent, but for the most part, H5P is unlimited attempts. And I think it takes the last attempt. I'll have to double check that piece of it to know for sure. But using the H5P activity allows that score to be put in the grade book. By me just embedding information from the content bank, I don't think a placeholder is created. And so that would be more of a no points awarded if you embedded those items.
I do have a piece of H5P content that I created embedded in my course for a grade. And I remember being having trouble with that part of it and the settings. And I remember feeling a bit overwhelmed. So I imagine if you did encounter that, you could shoot an email to the ITRC and they would help you work through it. But I do know that my activity, they do get a grade. So
They do have also the H5P will push the grades to the grade book. Before, when we have the previous black one, please correct me, Lance, it's the LTI, right?
That one was the plugin. So
Okay, the
before
blocking one.
H5P,
Yes, plugging one.
we had the plugin.
Yes, with the plugging one, sometimes it's happening when some of the grade couldn't push to the grade book for a particular student. I had that lots of question from last semester when we used the plugging one. However, when we changed to this version with the LTI, the blue one, I did reach out to a couple of faculties asking about where they were using it for the interactive videos and other things to do a formative assessment. They say there's no any of that kind of the situation happen. So it's actually more smoothly to push the grade to the grade book with the unlimited attempt if you set up right in the settings.
I believe we got a question from Kathy, and I'll just repeat it for anyone on the live stream since those folks can't see our chat. Can you incorporate this into Pressbooks also?
Yes, so that's something we were able to test in Pressbook. Again, you need the specific tier, which I believe ISU does have with our ISU Pressbook site. We can use H5P plugin on that platform.
Daphne, did any questions come in on the YouTube live chat? If it's working today?
No, it is working today, but there's no question.
Okay, very cool. Alrighty, so I guess we're at time. Anyone who has any follow-up questions, absolutely contact Lance, Daphne. Do you prefer they email itrc@isu.edu?
That email will goes to everyone.
Goes to everyone.
Yes, so that will be anyone, every full-time staff in ITRC is capable to answer any question. So thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Lance, and thank you, Daphne. This was extremely helpful and very exciting. Have a great day. Have a great afternoon, everyone. We really appreciate you coming and doing this session. This is awesome.
Thank you, Christine.